The daughters of Atlas are coming for you.
Children stole the power of all the gods. This is very personal, Billy.
Look, I might not have as much experience as you because I'm not super old like you, but I've seen all of the Fast and the Furious movies, lady. It's all about family! Family! Guys, that was a signal!
Zachary Levi returns to Shazam as he needs the help of his foster family to stop the Daughters of Atlas from taking over the world. On this edition of Talking About the Movies, we're talking about the latest installment in the DC Extended Universe, and that is Shazam, Fury of the Gods. Welcome to another edition of Talking About the Movies. Today we're taking a look at the biggest new release of the weekend, and that is, of course, Shazam, Fury of the Gods. Of course, the sequel to the original Shazam, the 12th installment of the DCEU, which is coming to a close very soon as we're getting ready to see what James Gunn brings to the table with his new DC universe that he has planned beginning in 2025, which actually, as of the time I'm recording this 2 days ago, he announced that he is directing the new Superman movie that's going to kick this off in July of 2025, I should say. July 2025? No, it's June 2025. I'm sorry. It's June. I think it said June 11, 2025. So, bottom line, he's directing Superman Legacy, and that's going to kick off the brand new DC universe that they have planned, starting with Chapter 1, Gods and Monsters. But we're not going to talk about that right now. We're talking about Shazam, Fury of the Gods, which is, of course, like I said, the sequel to the original Shazam. And I might as well talk about my thoughts on that movie. And I really liked that movie. I was very much surprised by how much I really enjoyed that movie. And I thought it was not only a really good film overall, it was one of the strongest films to come out of the DCEU. And I also liked that it had a dark edge to it while also being very lighthearted and funny. It almost had the feel of an 80s action movie, an 80s kids film. Like one of those, like an 80s comedy, something like on the lines of Ghostbusters or The Goonies or especially Big, and you could definitely tell that there's a much more darker sense of humor in these movies, but it's also more of a lighthearted film. It's a lighthearted comedy mixed in with darker elements to it, and it's definitely showing in this movie too. Like I was honestly surprised that both of these movies have pretty impressive kill counts in here, but we'll delve into that as we go along here. But like I said, I thought the original Shazam was a really good movie. I like Zachary Levi in that movie. I like the family aspect in that. I thought it was a very good film overall. I think it's still one of the strongest films to come out of the DCEU. No doubt about it. So I was really excited to see this new film. Apparently nobody else was, because I've been seeing a lot of people, they've been criticizing the fact that they're making a sequel to this, and nobody wanted to see a sequel to this, but I don't get why, because the first movie was a big hit. I mean, it was both a critical and a financial success. So why not make another film out of it? I mean, some of it might be because of what's been going on with DC over the last year, especially Warner Brothers over the last year. But I don't know. It's tough to tell. But we have the movie here now, Shazam: Fury of the Gods, and it hasn't been getting a good reception online. I think it's got about the same rating that it did on Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania, which I think is a very mixed bag of a film, but I really enjoyed this film. I would honestly go as far as to say, and I think I'm going to be one of the few people that says this, I really think this is about as good as the original film. I really thought about it for the longest time after I saw the film, and I thought, did I really think that was one was because when I come out of a movie, I usually take about maybe about 15, 20 minutes to put my first reactions together, and then sometimes I'll put them out here, but I spent a lot of time really thinking about, did I really enjoy this movie as much as I think I did? Because when I came out of it, I was like, okay, that was a pretty good movie. But the more I thought about it, the more I realized what they were able to do with this movie. I slowly but surely started to realize that, yes, indeed, I did really enjoy this movie a lot. Like I was about to say I liked it better than the first movie. I like it just as much as the first movie. I think it is a lot better than I think a lot of people are giving it credit for. And there's a lot of the same things that made the first movie so great in this movie, like that lighthearted comedy, but there's also those darker elements, like the creatures in this. The darker creatures they have in here, they are still in this movie. That's the power of having David Sandberg as the director here. He also did Lights Out, and he just knows how to make these type of movies that are just fun, but they are very reminiscent of, like I said, '80s action films, '80s kids films like Ghostbusters or the Monster Squad, or movies like on that front. Like, they're movies that would have been, this movie would have been PG back in the 1980s when PG actually meant something, but they really should have been the rating that it is now. And I like what they did here. I like that you get a mix of both the family when they're outside of the regular their superhero designs, but they also get to see them for a good majority in the superhero costumes that they're in. And I do like that there is a nice mixture of both the superheroes and also the regular family. Like, they make some notable changes in here. Like, for one of the big things they change is that Mary Bromfield, who in the original Shazam, when she turns into a superhero, she's played by a completely different actress, Michelle Borth. But I like what they did in this movie. Like, she's played by both the same actress when she's just a regular kid, and then she becomes and then when she becomes a superhero, she's basically playing the same character. And I thought that was pretty interesting. You got all the other people back from most of the people that were playing the superheroes in the previous film are back in this movie. Some of them really get a chance to shine, like Megan Good, who plays Darla in this. Like, kudos to her. She really knew what she was doing, because she's having the time of her life playing this kid as a superhero. And, like, there's a lot of great moments here. I think she really was the breakout star of this movie, honestly. And everybody in this movie did a pretty good job. I like Jack Dylan Glazer in this. I like Adam Brody playing the superhero version of him. Asher Angel, I think, does a very good job as Billy Batson in this movie. I think he definitely shows his maturity as a kid in this movie. And you do kind of feel for what he's going for here, even though it does lead to kind of some of the mixed opinions I have on this film, which we'll get to in a moment. But I thought everybody, for the most part, did a pretty good job in here. I like the fact that I like the villains overall. I thought Lucy Liu was pretty good as the villain here, even though her plan doesn't really make a whole lot of sense at the end. Helen Mirren was very good in here. Of course, you got Rachel Zegler from West Side Story. I thought she was really good in this. Some might say that it would have been easier to just cut her out of the film, but I don't know. I thought she did okay for what she had to do in here. Could there have been more? Probably, but like I said, I enjoyed her for what she did in this film. And then you get to Zachary Levi as Shazam, and this is one of the parts of the film that I think I can agree with a lot of people with the criticisms towards him. It's not that Zachary Levi is bad as Shazam in here, but when Billy turns into Shazam, like Billy Batson, like I said before, he seems more mature. Like, he seems smarter than he did in the movie prior to this. Like he has grown, but when he turns into Shazam just doesn't feel like he changes whatsoever. Like, Shazam still feels like that 13-year-old kid who was the kid that eventually that we saw in the first movie. And at times it can get really, like, you really start to look at it and just like, okay, dude, what are you doing here? But I will give him this. Zachary Levi is still pretty good at Shazam. I think he still has a lot of those great moments in there that are still pretty funny. There are a lot of really good funny moments in here overall. So, yeah, I thought he was all right in here. I definitely do think that the tonal difference between the Shazam in this movie and the Shazam in the previous movie, it does definitely show in this film, especially when you see that Billy Batson himself is more mature in this performance that he gives. Like I said, Asher Angel, I think, does a very good job playing this character in this film. And that does lead to some of the other flaws I have with the film. I thought that some of the moments in here, like some of the subplots going on, like there's some subplots here that are there, but they're not really in focus most of the time. Like, there's a subplot about how Billy is worried that once he turns 18, like the foster home that's been taking care of him, he gets aged out of that, and so essentially he's worried about being kicked out of there, and that really doesn't come back into play whatsoever. And there's a subplot about the fact that Billy can't call his mother by mother; he has to call her by her name, Rosa, and that really doesn't go anywhere. Mary wants to go off to college. There's not a whole lot going on in that front. Later on in the film, it's just kind of there. Even Freddy, who has probably the most of the subplots in this, like he wants to become a superhero on his own, and it's there for a good majority of the first two thirds. But then when they get to the big action sequence in the end of the film, they just kind of push that aside, really. And like, I really don't know why they threw those in there if they weren't going to go back to them at any point. I think that's one of the is I think the script is not really as polished as it was in the first film. I'm trying to see if it's the same it's the same person that did the first film, Henry Gayden, and I don't know. Maybe it's the other writer, Chris Morgan. Chris Morgan, of course, wrote for the Fast and Furious films, and I don't know. I don't know. Could have been him. Maybe it could have been the studio that said we got to speed this along. And for the movie, I think it does help that the movie doesn't fall into those tropes that this movie could have fallen into. There's no third act breakup. There's no liar reveal. There's none of those cliches that could have easily ruined something like this. But like everything that happens kind of moves at a fast pace, which is both part of a pro and a con. It's a con because those subplots you were setting up before don't really come back into play at any point in the film. And then, but the pro is that you're moving the story along. This is a film that, even though it's still over 2 hours long, it does move along at a good enough pace that you can still stick with it. And I do think that the moments when the family has to work together, when they're not the superheroes, and when they aren't, and when they are, I still think that works very well. It does, like I said, it does lead to a lot of great funny moments throughout the course of the movie. Like, I like the fact that the whole town is that they give them this nickname of the Philadelphia Fiascos, and then like one of the funniest scenes in the beginning of the film is when the bridge goes out, and they go off and they save everybody, and they say we have to make sure that this bridge does not fall down, and then the very next scene is just like the bridge has collapsed. The bridge has fallen down pretty much. It's like it's one of those. It's like it's funny stuff like that keeps me going throughout the course of the film. I mean, Zachary Levi body slams Helen Mirren, for God's sakes. How is that not funny? Like I enjoyed it a lot. I would say that the final 5 minutes is where I've been hearing a lot of the most complaints. Like before we get to the credits, like the last thing that happens in the final, at least 5 to 10 minutes, is seen as kind of a cop out. I'm going to go into spoilers, which I'll put on a disclaimer on the description below and in the title to say that if you don't want to hear spoilers, don't watch this review. But so what happens at the end of the movie is that Billy saves the day. He ends up sacrificing his life, defeating Calypso and stopping the tree that takes place that's been growing inside of the baseball field. It basically saves the day, but he loses his life because of this. So they go to the kingdom they go to Anthea's kingdom. They put him in the grave. And then all of a sudden, Wonder Woman comes into the film, played by Gal Gadot. There's been a running subplot about how, Shazam basically wants to bang Wonder Woman. I mean, that's pretty much what it is. And it's not like in the first movie where you have the cameo by Superman and then you see him come in, and Superman, you don't see his face whatsoever. I like that they actually put Wonder Woman in here. And what they do here actually kind of makes sense for what they're trying to do, because she appears, she helps repair the staff because she's a god. And she uses her power to revive the god's realm and resurrect Billy, basically creating a Deus Ex Machina, which I could see why people are upset about that, but at the same time, I think they do believe that there is probably a good chance that Shazam could eventually come back, even though his future is kind of sketchy right now because of everything that's going on at DC right now, and you could make the argument that maybe they should have done it this way. He sacrifices his life, and the family will never forget what the sacrifice he made. But like I said, I like what they did here. I like the little scene that they had between Shazam and Wonder Woman. Like, I think that's a fun scene to add into there. I kind of wish that the commercials for this movie didn't spoil it. Like, if you saw I think Eminem posted an Instagram video featuring a commercial for this movie, and it shows the clip of Wonder Woman at the end. It's just kind of like, was that really necessary to throw that in there? Is this like, Warner Brothers, are you really that scared that nobody's going to come to see this? Which, technically, it probably if it was a last-ditch effort because the movie unfortunately didn't do well, but I don't know. Like, those type of cameos, I don't think you should spoil in the movie. This isn't like in The Flash where everybody knows that Michael Keaton's coming back as Batman. This is a scene that just comes out of nowhere, and it just is like, I'm more upset about the marketing of the film than the actual scene itself for including that scene in there. Like I said, I think that scene works for this film because it makes sense for what happens at the end. I like that scene. I know a lot of people are going to be very polarizing about that, but I like what they did there. Like, I know there's a good chance that we've probably seen the last of these characters because of what's going on at DC and the fact that this movie may not perform well at the box office to keep the series going. But like, I would have been okay. I would have been okay if they went out of the way with it. I like what they did with it. I'm gonna probably be one of the few people that actually says that. But anyway, on that note, my overall summary of this movie is that I did really enjoy it. There are some elements in the story that I thought were not as strong. I do think that Shazam is not a better written character in this one, even though Billy Batson is. I do like that the editing is very solid for the most part. It gets everything going, but it also kind of dings the stories that they're setting up beforehand, like the subplots that they were setting up beforehand. But the overall fun factor is still there, and I do like that David Sandberg is not afraid to make a movie that feels like a 1980s action movie, like a film that isn't afraid to just tone it down for the kids. I think you do show them these scarier creatures and show them that, hey, movies can still be fun like this, like we had back in the day. But I think that does work very well here. Like, I think the movie overall is still a ton of fun. I really enjoyed it a lot. I think of the DCEU films, the Shazam films overall have probably been my favorites of the ones that I watched most all the time in the DCEU. I'm looking at the list here. I'm trying to remember. Wonder Woman is the one I really like the most, and the Suicide Squad. Black Adam I was kind of mixed on, so with what was Wonder Woman 84. I like Birds of Prey, I like Aquaman, but the Shazam movies are the ones that I would go back and watch over again. I've really enjoyed these movies a lot. I like watching the first movie over again, and I do like the second movie very much as well. I do agree that I do say that it is just as good as the original film. Like, I won't say it's better than the original film, but I thought that it was just as good. I think it does a very good job of doing what a sequel should do. Be just as good as the original and have just as much fun, and maybe even more so than the previous film. And I think it does just enough to recommend it. I think if you go into it, if you really like the first Shazam movie, I think you go into this, you really do get a good sense of a good piece of entertainment. I would give it a strong thumbs up. Anything else I want to say about this movie? But yeah, I hope that they do. If they don't do another Shazam movie, I won't be too sad, because I think this does end on a good enough note where you don't really need to continue that story. I would like to see these characters again. Maybe not in another movie, maybe in like a spin-off movie, or even something like an HBO Max series. But I don't know if that'll ever happen. But I hope it does. I mean, I think it's a solid film. I know a lot of people probably won't think that way, but I enjoyed Shazam: Fury of the Gods. What did you guys think? I'm very curious to hear what the reaction for this is going to be from the general public. Let me know in the comments below what you think. And thank you guys for watching this review. So, I think next week is John Wick Chapter 2. So, I'll probably have a review for that coming up as well. So, be on the lookout for that next week. So, again, sorry for getting this out a little bit later than usual. But things got in the way. But anyway, thank you very much for watching, and if you like this video, hit the like and subscribe button, and tell me what your thoughts are on the movie below. So, thanks for watching. I'll see you guys next time, and until then, take care.